Hi, everyone. I'm here with Pat McCarthy. He is the Chief Revenue Officer of Precisely, and we're here to talk about how Precisely has been using win-loss feedback to build a culture around feedback with transparency and growth as a mindset. All right, so Pat, tell me a bit about your role. What does being Chief Revenue Officer of a company like Precisely entail?
Yeah, I'm responsible for, I would say, the growth of the company. So everything that deals with how we grow the company and really the bulk of the customer interactions. So how we engage with clients through expanding existing solutions, how they're using our technology and what opportunities they have to use new technologies, and then also the renewal aspect of the business.
And why do you use win-loss at Precisely?
I've had a long experience with using win-loss for myself as an account executive when I would call clients if I lost to get feedback, or I experienced it internally where I'd have maybe pre-sales sometimes would do that, or I'd have marketing do that function. And I always found the feedback valuable, but the thing that I was always thinking about is I could see the conversations or see the feedback, and it always felt like it came from a bit of an angle, the angle of the person that was actually doing the conversation. And so we really decided that using third-party feedback would deliver really on our full objective, is to really understand why did we win, why did we lose, and how do we increase our win rate, and then understand the opportunities we have to improve where we have some weaknesses or didn't really understand the customer's buying behavior or the buying patterns that were happening.
And why is it important for you to use a third party?
The objectivity of that. So I think it's very difficult. I can go back to when I was doing my own win-loss conversations. If I looked back at that, I could see, no, that didn't really happen in that sales cycle, or, you guys missed this, so if you're involved in the event, it's almost impossible for you to not take some of that bias and direct or guide the conversation. We all want to win. We all want to come out on top. And that's related to the losses. And then related to the wins, also, when I saw the feedback, it was a lot about the person or the individual, and versus necessarily the broader context of what the customer was doing and why the customer was doing it. And so going back to my comments around third-party objectivity, and I think having a different goal or objective, a third party has a different goal or objective for win-loss feedback.
And thinking outside of your own team and your own department, how do others at Precisely use this win-loss data?
Yeah, when we started this, it was a partnership between myself and the chief product officer. And so we came together and said, hey, this would be really good for some specific product segments for us to double down and do that. And so we've continued that. So product management, product marketing, engineering, solution engineering, pricing, and others in the organization, and sales teams obviously use the feedback and functionality, and it's worked its way back into how we design products, how we price and package, how we talk about ourselves, how we understand what customer buying patterns are, behaviors are. So it's starting to really percolate and work its way across all the different functions that we have in the organization.
Have you had any challenges to adoption of win-loss data across the different teams? Any sort of pushback from others?
I wouldn't say it's pushback. I think the thing that I've seen is probably selective digging of grabbing data, selective insights. One of the other goals that I have for win-loss data is, sometimes it can be about a deal, but I'm generally looking for bigger patterns for strengths and bigger opportunity areas. And so one of the things I've encouraged the teams, don't grab that verbatim and bring that single verbatim and then bring that back as, hey, this is the reason why this happened, or this is the reason why this happened. Try to look at things in a bigger context, in a broader context. That being said, if you see things that are real opportunities and you think are diamonds, you should definitely work on those. Or if you see some opportunity areas that you're really worried about, you should dig in on those things, but don't let single points or a single sentence or a single comment drive too much of what the direction is. Look for a corpus of data or corpus of insights that help guide the organization.
And how has Precisely taken that broader, wider view of consuming this feedback? How do you take these interviews and make them into something that's more data-driven?
I think two things. Number one is we've had you come and personally update our ELT, our executive leadership team, and kind of give insights broader across the organization. So that creates some top-down adoption pressure in the organization. And the other item that we're doing is we're doing a win-loss day, we're doing our own version of a win-loss day where we're bringing in, marketing, support, engineering, solution engineers, sales teams, and, kind of bringing them together to focus on, we're going after 3 product segments or 3 product categories and say, hey, what are the strengths that we have that we're not using enough? And so we're focusing on 3 strengths and 1 opportunity. What are the strengths that we can see that we're not using consistently enough that will help increase our win rate? And then what's the 1 opportunity area that we should really be conscious of? Maybe it's a competitive, maybe it's a price point, maybe it's a feature or a function, maybe it's a geographic difference. And so bringing that multi-function, multi-discipline team is increasing the exposure of the win-loss feedback and content, and it's giving it some real purpose. So it's kind of putting it into a specific set of actions.
And in terms of who should be on those teams to consume the feedback, how do you decide who to bring to the table to work on designing these conclusions or action steps?
Yeah, we're looking for all the interested stakeholders in that, so people that can take action or would have control over things. And so obviously we like engineering and product management to be in there because they can look at the feedback we're getting around features and functions or UX design. We like some product management also there, maybe for pricing or packaging, feedback, marketing for how we're talking about it, sales for how are we actually engaging with the clients, and then solution engineering for how are we demonstrating the solutions, professional service for how are we implementing. So it's the full life cycle of the customer's experience, touching the product, getting the product live, renewing the product, using the product. So,
and who do you feel at your company should be accessing or consuming this feedback?
Well, I'd like everybody to do it. I don't think everybody has a role in doing that, but if you're building something that is going to be consumed by a customer, if you're touching a customer, if you're engaging with a customer, then I feel like you should be using some form of the win-loss feedback. Probably not in there listening to the verbatims or the recordings every day, but certainly be aware of the aggregated content. What are our opportunity areas that we need to work on, and what are the strengths that we need to double down on and really accelerate our strengths? And that's one of the things also, win-loss programs sometimes can focus on the loss aspect of it versus the strength aspect of it. And so really keeping the organization focused on, hey, let's make sure that we're taking this opportunity and focusing on our strengths and expanding on our strengths versus getting so wrapped up into lost data.
And thinking of a culture of safe feedback consumption, how have you gone about making this democratized access feel safe for everybody as they view the perspective of the customers in their various roles?
Yeah, we don't let it get weaponized. So sometimes win-loss feedback, particularly negative feedback, can get weaponized. I mean, obviously, if we see something egregious, we're gonna have some conversation. But the real intent here isn't that an AE gets some lost feedback and then the first level sales manager goes off and has a tough conversation with that person. That should make its way back into enablement. It should be a development conversation if there's opportunity, because as soon as you start weaponizing it and using it to go pound on people, it loses its effectiveness. You start to see people not want their deals to make it their way into the program. Our policy related to deals is it's based on size. You don't get to exclude opportunities. We want to see all of the feedback. And so, but if you have this culture of where people are getting pounded for negative feedback or for a loss, it's just going to create a culture where people don't want to participate in it and don't want to take corrective action.
So do you have some examples of any positive outcomes that have been driven, backed and supported by the win-loss efforts you've had in place?
Yeah, I think there's 2 really relevant ones for us. There's a pricing and packaging scenario related to the entry point price for one of our solutions, where we noticed in the feedback that we got some pretty consistent feedback if the customer wanted to start very small, that there was a barrier to entry there. So we made some adjustments in the price point and the entry for that, and it's been very effective. And then the other one was we noticed that EMEA versus the US, and so North America versus Europe, we saw some distinct differences in win rates, and particularly related to demonstration feedback and how we were talking about the solution. And so we did some collaborative sessions there to gather some feedback and then bring those processes and bring those demonstration routines back to the US and really influence the win rate in that particular product.
And just thinking through the perspective of someone who's bringing win-loss to the organization for the first time, what were some of the most effective ways that you found you were able to establish this culture and this mindset from the get-go, from your role and position on the C-suite?
Yeah, I think it was getting all of my peers aligned around that, and I took it to our CEO also. That was the first step, is to make sure that everybody understood what we were going to do, why we were going to do it, how we were going to use the data and the content. It's really its purpose. And then number two is providing them regular feedback, related to that as the results started to come in, and then encouraging them to log in and to check the data and the content. And, again, some top-down pressure from them related to their teams. Are they using the feedback? How is it influencing the decisions that they're making and the content that they're producing? And then continuing it to evolve, like the win-loss day and other things. And so it's there's no magic to it. It's just this consistent drumbeat, and then just what I feel like is building this momentum until it just becomes part of the DNA of the organization. I think for us also, it was helped us to get a little more candid about ourselves in multiple ways, the good things that we do that we needed to multiply in the opportunity areas. And so I think it's this culture of trust around, hey, this is feedback that we're going to use ourselves to accelerate the areas where we have some advantage, and then look for how we're going to work together to maybe cover our flanks or to understand how we need to be positioning ourselves differently.
Are there any final thoughts you have just about establishing culture when it comes to feedback? I know we've covered a number of different areas here, but anything that jumps into your mind?
Yeah, I think people want to win. So that's a bit of this. Like, people want to win. People want to be on winning teams. People want to grow, and but sometimes they don't want the coaching or the feedback that's required in order to be able to do that, and they don't necessarily want that in a consistent basis. But if you have the right intent, hey, we're trying to improve the business outcomes for our customers. We're trying to improve the business outcomes for ourselves, and we're going to, do this together. It's not like I'm going off and I'm doing these win-loss things and sending you off on your own. I am in this with you to drive this together. That has been a very effective approach for us.
Alrighty, well, Pat, thank you so much for an awesome session. It's been great having you here. Really enjoy hearing from your perspective and understanding how Precisely is benefiting from win-loss analysis with Closed.
Great. Thanks, Spencer.